What am I reading?
Okay, so I'd like you to recite the opening prayers, um, starting on page 1 with the altruistic motivation, and then page 2, and then page 5, and page 6. So there's 4 prayers.
Okay.
So if you can read it 3 times in English, will be great.
The Mandarin version.
Just read the English.
Okay, so this is the altruistic motivation. All mother sentiment beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. I need to repeat it 3 times. Oops.
Yes, recite 3 times.
Okay. Okay? All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. The other one is it bodhicitta?
Action Bodhicitta prayer on page 2.
Okay. Action bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Long refugee prayer.
No, 3 times the action Bodhicitta prayer.
Oh,
Three
okay.
times. Yep.
This as well. Thus I achieve enlightenment. I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Thank you. And now the short refuge prayer on page 5.
Sure. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
And the short, excuse me, the 4 immeasurables on page 6. 3 times.
All right. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Very good. Thank you all very much. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the opening prayers or anything that we have been talking about, or something that maybe you'd like to be talking about?
For me, reading this altruistic motivation, why do we say, like, especially those enemies who hate me? Is that a common theme?
Yes, because we have to have compassion for all beings, including those who hate me, those who are standing in the way of my practice and the way of my learning, especially them. It's easy to want to have happiness, to want to have peace for our friends and our family. But for those other human beings who are misguided, who are confused, who are being controlled by their afflictive emotions, we need to help them especially. So we dedicate and we motivate our practices and prayers and so on for the benefit of those people.
Okay, thank you. It just didn't resonate with hate me because I don't think I have haters that I'm aware of. I might be wrong, but yeah, that's all. It's just as I was reading it loud, it just stood out to me louder. I mean, more apparent. So that's why it's those enemies who hate me.
Right. You know, that's right. So it's the
Thank you.
altruistic. You know what altruistic means, correct?
No, can you remind me?
Altruistic is that our actions and what we're doing is for the benefit of others. That we're
Okay.
doing for others, brothers and sisters and so on. And if we regard everyone as brothers and sisters, as our mothers, our family, then it makes it easier for us to recognize that even our brothers and sisters, there have been times with our brothers and sisters that we didn't agree with them or they didn't agree with us. But we had forgiveness for them. We had love for them. We had compassion for them. So when we look at all other beings as being our brothers and sisters, we have to extend them the same kind of respect, the same kind of forgiveness, the same kind of compassion.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. So, Alea, do you have your book? Are you with us tonight?
Yeah, I have my book.
Okay.
Just a little under the weather.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you recite?
That's okay.
Are you up to that?
Yeah, let me go upstairs and grab my book.
Oh,
And while she's doing that, maybe I have missed this in the past. What is the Buddhism perspective on death?
well, it's something that we all have to deal with. It is our impermanent nature. That
Correct.
everything is impermanent. Everything that we know and think that might be permanent is actually impermanent. And so that we regard our life as something that is a gift that we have received, and we've received this gift of life many times, and that we have receive the passage of death into what becomes what we call a reality many times. And to recognize that this life is our way of being able to bring together this birth that we have and this death that we have as a constant cycle of all beings, of all life and so on. So death is part of a process, and it is not something to be feared. It's something to be embraced and something to be prepared for.
So is in the Buddhism faith, is there like a concept of hell and heaven? Am I going to be reincarnated and come back as Paris Hilton's puppy? What is that perspective like
Well,
from like after death?
there is a lot of symbology that goes to that. There is a philosophy about all that.
Okay.
And, it's not something that I can answer very, very quickly.
Okay.
But we do talk about it as we move along through all these different practices and prayers and instructions and so on. But it's something that we will address head on in the coming weeks and so on. So
Okay.
if you've been able to, watch the YouTube, we've already made some comments about that, some of our past meetings and so on. But to answer your question directly, yes, it does talk about death. It does talk about impermanence, and it talks about something that we need to prepare ourselves for as human beings. That we have the wrong view that this is some kind of punishment or something, or that there's a heaven or hell. The heaven or hell is what we make it now.
Right.
All we have is now. The past is gone. We can't do anything with that. The future hasn't come yet. It's always tomorrow. The only thing that we can actually do anything about is our life now, and being prepared for the inevitability of our dropping our body, losing this body, but we still have our spiritual nature. We still have our true nature, and to be able to recognize that, and to be able to not feel as though that is being lost. We're recognizing that as being everlasting in a pure sense. So that's something that we talk a lot about.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fairly, it's all you.
Okay. So, Alea, would you? We've been talking about the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And this is very important and bears, some more conversation tonight. And so to prepare ourselves for the conversation, would you recite these four prayers on page 15, 16, 17, and 17? Those are the four prayers, three pages, and these four prayers. Would you do that, please? And then at the end of each one, you notice at the bottom of each of these prayers, it says contemplate. So if we can all take a moment and quietly reread this to ourselves to capture the meaning of each one of these prayers. And then we're going to discuss the suffering of samsara and karma, cause and result. We've already discussed the precious human life, and we've already discussed impermanence quite a bit, but we'll get to talking about these other two tonight. So please begin when you're ready.
The four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. 1. Precious human life. The freedom and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain accomplish the purpose of human life. If one does not achieve benefit from this now, how could this opportunity come again? Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment are supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body which is easily lost, do not waste this meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. It has been said, to be born a precious human being is more difficult than a blind turtle at the bottom of a vast ocean, greater than all the oceans combined on the earth, rising up from the depths of the water once every 100 years, in order to poke its head through a single small wooden yoke floating on the ocean's surface. Those who have good fortune to make a connection with the teachings are rare, and those who really take them to heart and embody them in their actions, even rarer as rare, in fact, as stars in broad daylight. Contemplate.
So please contemplate for a moment. Maybe close your eyes, keep your back straight. But maybe it's better to open your eyes, I'm sorry, and reread this prayer to yourself. And contemplate the meaning, what it means to you. Okay, thank you. Please continue with the next prayer.
Impermanence. Ka. No matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. Worldly activities, yes, they are lies. Ka. The 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? In the certainty of death and knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Impermanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. Abandoning laziness and indifference, blaze like fire in fierce diligence. This life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. Birth and death, migrators, are the same, like actors in a play or dance. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky. Like water falling from a steep mountain cliff, it departs quickly. The nature of all phenomenon is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend anytime like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make an effort for the essence of the Dharma. The 8 worldly concerns, or dharmas: gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. Contemplate.
Yes, again, please stay in a good, solid position and reread this quietly to yourself, contemplating the meaning, how you relate to this. Okay. Please read the next prayer.
The suffering of samsara. Consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so great fear and dread arise in the heart. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samskaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate.
So again, reread this quietly to yourself and contemplate the meaning as it relates to you. All right. Now read the 4th prayer, please.
Karma, cause and result. Even if one were a king at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retune will not follow. But whenever that sentient being goes, his karma follows after him like a shadow. The fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The exonerable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the dharma by distinguishing what should be practiced and what should be given up. The Buddha said, when asked, "What was my previous life?" "What you are now is what you have been. What you will be is what you do now." Contemplate.
Please again, read this quietly, contemplate the meaning. Okay, thank you. So the past 2 weeks we have discussed precious human life, the first of these 4 thoughts, and we discussed impermanence. So you can go back and watch those. I've been sending out a link to those YouTube videos that we've been recording and posting them on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch those just as if we're having a conversation right now and so on. So I invite you to do that. I don't want to skip over anything, but at the same time, I don't want to unnecessarily have to keep repeating the same things over and over again when they're available to us in another way. We need to discuss now the suffering of samsara and karma, cause and result. So that's what we're going to discuss this evening. So we begin with defining what is samsara. So we talk about samsara as the ocean of suffering. This is the literal translation of the samsara is a Sanskrit word. And this ocean is this world in which we live, this phenomenal nature, so much of which we really don't know how it's here, why it's here, what are we going to do with it, and so on. And it is something that we have to understand through the experience of being in samsara, being in this ocean of suffering, and then recognizing why it is that we're here, what caused us to be here, and then how is it that we can transform this ocean of suffering into an ocean of, or into a life of enjoyment, for lack of a better word. So samsara is like one side of your hand. Here is this ocean of suffering. But on the other side of your hand is what we call nirvana. And nirvana is the absence of suffering. It is peace. It is wisdom. It is loving kindness. It is compassion. It is skillful means. It is joy. It is equanimity. It is a sense of balance in nirvana. So what we're learning, through the study of the Dharma is what this situation is that we are as human beings in this ocean of samsara, and to what degree can we transform that into nirvana, into this peace and so on. So this is what we're striving for. So we talk about the jewel ornament of liberation. So this liberation is the liberation from this suffering, from this ocean of samsara into nirvana, that we're liberating ourselves to nirvana. So this is a system by which we learn how to do that. And then we become the embodiment of this practice. We become the active player, if you will, in our own life, and being able to transcend the causes of suffering, the results of the suffering, and we're able to abide in our true nature. So we say we have three bodies. We have a physical body, we have an intellectual body, and we have a spiritual body. So the physical body and the intellectual body are completely locked together and so on, and it's easy for us to be able to recognize that. When we pass, when we say we die, it's the physical body that dies, and along with it goes the brain. So the mind, what we talk about, the little mind, goes with that. Our memory is lost. If we've been lived many times, if we've been born many times, we have all these lifetimes of having a physical body and an intellect and so on, but we don't remember that because it's locked in this physical body, and it goes through this death process. However, our spiritual body is in our heart center. It's not the fleshy heart, but it's our heart center, and it's the energy with which we have is our life force that we're born with and we use during our entire lives and so on. And at the time of our death, when our physical body drops, our intellectual body goes along with that, it drops away, the spiritual body is released, is liberated from that physical body and so on. That spiritual body is something that we might regard as being absolute or ultimate or permanent, something like that. Now, these words we can't get too hung up on because they're conceptual words, and we'll discuss more about that. But the spirituality, the spiritual body, is more like a vibration that penetrates us all, that runs through everybody's life, that is all part of this phenomenal nature that we live in. And this penetration of this vibration is the bodhicitta, is loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The holy enlightened mind, the holy enlightened mind. It's the big mind. This is the little mind. The big mind that is indestructible wisdom. So the more that we're able to clear away the misconceptions that we have, the emotions that we have are like blockages of that indestructible mind, of that indestructible bodhicitta, the more we realize who it is that we are. We have Buddha nature. We are born as Buddha. But as we are growing up as a human being and so on, we go through all these stages of being contaminated and being confused and so on. So what we're needing to do is to remove all those confusions, all those things, and get to the essence of who it is that we are, our true nature, our life force that is pure, that is within ourselves. So this process in being able to do this is the Dharma teaching. This is what the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago, and so many people have been practicing this for these 2,600 years and so on. So we're coming to it now. We may have come to it before in prior lives, and that's why we had a path to be able to get to this point tonight, to be able to have this discussion and hear these things, because we have done preparatory work to get to this point. We didn't just one day say, oh, I'm going to start learning the Dharma or something like that. There's a process that's been in place. And now we're beginning to recognize that process as this vibration that penetrates all beings and so on. So the suffering of beings, the suffering, this confusion we go through, we need to define sentient beings. So sentient means that we have a life, that we are born, that during this life we have a body. There's many different sentient beings. There's human beings, there's animal beings, there's insect beings, there's beings that are invisible to us, there's beings that are in the atmosphere that are all around us that we don't see, there's beings that are below the ground that we don't see, that are in the ground and so on. So there's lots of beings, and they're identified by the fact that they are born, that during their lifetime they get sick or they get injured, that they get old, and at some point they die. This defines a sentient being. They have birth, they have old age, they have sickness, and they have death. So there's so many beings that fall into that classification of sentient beings. What makes a human being, a precious human being, a special human being, makes it because we have our intellect. We have a brain that is much more sophisticated than all the other beings that we're familiar with. So to understand a human being, we have to understand that aside from and including with the birth, the death, the birth, the old age, the sickness, and the death, we also have situations where we are with others that we don't like. There's situations that, it might be a cocktail party. It might be going to a meeting. It might be being in a community meeting or something like that, where we're with a whole bunch of people, and we really don't like being there. They're not people that we relate to in a direct way that we want to relate to. We're not enjoying them and so on. So we have to suffer through that that being with them. Maybe you've all been at a cocktail party and maybe you were a stranger to everybody there and you felt, what am I doing here? And so you had that kind of an experience. Or maybe you were going to some kind of a work meeting or something. So I think you can relate to being in that situation. So one thing that a human being does is to get into a situation that they're not comfortable being with certain other people. Another point of being a human being is that we're not with the ones that we love. We're not with the ones that we want to be with. That is part of being a human being. It's part of the suffering of being a human being that is unique to us, to human beings. So we're not with our family, with our friends. We're not with people who have the same kind of attitudes that we have, so we're missing them. Maybe we had to go on a trip. Maybe we had to go on a business trip, or maybe we had to be in some kind of an academy where we had to go, school or something like that. And we just weren't comfortable, when we first got there. So to not be with the ones that we love, the ones that we want to be with, is a unique suffering to human beings. Another suffering of human beings is that we don't get what we want. Sometimes, there's just things that we just can't get. Maybe we don't have the intelligence to be able to do it. Maybe we want to be, a medical person. Maybe we want to be a business person. Maybe we want to be a carpenter. Any different thing that we might want to be, we're not able to do that, and we feel like we're missing something. Or maybe it's something that we want to have money in the bank. We want to have a nice car. We want to have a really nice love relationship and so on. And it's not happening for us. So we're suffering when that's not working. We're not getting what we want. So that's the third suffering of being a human being. And the fourth suffering of being a human being is we get what we want. We really wanted it. My goodness, we went to work for it and everything. And now we have to support it. Now we have to keep working at it. We have to maintain it. So a perfect example of something like that is you go and you want to get a car. You want to buy a car. So you go to the dealership and you got to deal with the person who's selling you a car and so on. And that's kind of an agony all by itself. But then you get the car and you find out now, well, you got to get insurance for it. Well, I didn't know how to get insurance for it. But and then you find out, well, the insurance is going to cost X number of dollars. And you say, wow, I don't have a budget for that. And then maybe you've got the car, you've got the insurance, but then you've got to take care of the car. You got to make sure that the oil's being changed and all the different things, that the maintenance for the car and all that kind of stuff are all these added expenses that you didn't expect. So you get what you want, you work very hard for it, but now you find out, now you have to protect it. Now you have to take care of it. Another example would be a relationship, a love relationship. You have this person that you really like, you're very attracted to them, they seem to be attracted to you, and so on, and you develop this relationship and it seems really good, but time moves on, things change and so on, and you find out that you really got to work at this relationship much more than you thought you would have to work for it. This person might be very demanding, or you're not getting your needs met. Maybe you're the one who's demanding and they're not capable of giving you what you're looking for. There's expectations that are not met on either side and so on. So it seems like it's a relationship that's not working very well. So we get what we want, but now we have to take care of it. So these four things are the hallmarks of being a human being. So you should write these down, because this becomes things that we think about. when Aleo was reciting the impermanence prayer. It said the 8 worldly concerns. What we are always thinking about are these 8 worldly concerns: gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. This is what we're always thinking about. So you should write this down in a place where you can remember, and then put it in the context of being a human being, of being with those that you don't like, not being with the ones you love, not getting what you want, but getting it and now having to protect it. Because these are base issues that our psyche, our mind, is thinking about. And we have to identify them and identify the causes for them in order to liberate from them, in order to recognize I created these things for myself, and now I have to navigate a way to be able to liberate myself from the suffering of these things. So it says, consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. So being a human being, that we say that being a human being has 6 aspects to it, or 6 realms to it. One of those realms is we feel like, we just don't know anything, that we're very ignorant. And all that we're thinking about are animalistic behavior. We got to eat. We got to have a place to sleep. We got to have protection. We want to procreate. These are the only things that we really are base things that we think about. And another thing of being a human being is maybe we want to have possessions, and we want to keep those possessions. We want to protect those possessions to the point of excluding other people. We selfishly hold on to these things. So we develop a greed. We develop a miserliness. So they're human beings whose whole life is based on that kind of greed and miserliness. Then there might be things that we do as human beings that cause great suffering to others or to ourselves. We kill beings. We lie to beings. We steal from beings. We take advantage sexually of beings. We get intoxicated and get enraged with beings and so on, all these things, and we wind up in these hellish kind of experiences where it seems like this demon is within myself and is taken over, and I feel like I'm in some kind of a hell, something like that. So those are the 3 lower realms. The realm of ignorance, of not knowing who you are, not understanding that you're deluded. That's like an animal realm. The realm of hungry ghosts, we call it. Those beings who are miserly, who are very, very greedy. And then the beings who are in hell realms, that have these demons within themselves. Maybe it's their neuroses that are dictating how it is that they behave and misbehave and so on like that. So those are called the 3 lower realms. The 3 higher realms are that maybe we think that we are like a god, that we're above all this, that we're so special. There's so many other beings. I mean, there's 8.2 billion people that live on this planet right now, and how many people, are living in a way that we are. We're very fortunate beings. We live in a very good place. We have very good homes. We have very good jobs. We have very good relationships. They have their problems and so on, but compared to people that live in very underprivileged places, maybe it's South America, maybe it's Africa, maybe it's Russia, maybe it's China, you name it. It could be in America. It's in America. There are people that live in America who do not have many of the advantages that we have and so on. So we're very fortunate in that regard. So some people develop a pridefulness out of that and say, oh, I'm such a fortunate person. I have such an education that's so good and I'm able to do all these things. It's like I'm a god compared to all these other people. And they have great wisdom, but they are selfish with their wisdom. It's tied up in their pride. So sometimes we're thinking like that. And then the other thing is sometimes we're like a jealous God, that we want what everybody else has. Then there's conflict all the time. I'm creating this conflict because I want what they have. They want what I have. I have to protect what I have, and I have to divide ways to be able to capture what it is that they have that will increase my worth. So we say that we're like jealous gods, demigods we call it, and who have great skillful means. Demigods are able to manipulate the minds of many, 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 many people, millions of people. They can be great politicians. They can be great business people. They can be great athletes. They can be great people who do many things that people know, everybody knows them, and so on. But they are misguided in that their wisdom is a self-aggrandizement kind of a wisdom. It's what's going to make them feel better, give them a bigger identity, a stronger identity. So in the God realm, they have great wisdom, but no ability to be able to do for others. They don't have a good compassion. The demigods have the ability to be able to communicate with others and to help others, but their help may be for the benefit of the demigod and not necessarily for the other beings, that they're selfish in the way that they are manipulating these other beings. So the sixth realm, the sixth aspect of being a human being is being desirous, is wanting all these things, is realizing you can move through all these things, you can do all these things. So all this is within being a human being, the life of being a human being. So these are called the six realms of being a human being. So knowing this and using this as a framework helps us to understand the system of the Dharma, because this is what we're doing. We're learning what it is to be a human being. And up to this point, it's very difficult to do that. You may get it, from a point of view of a college professor. You may get it from the point of view of a business person. You may get it from the point of view of your mother or your father, and so on. And there's not a good way to be able to look at this and recognize that vibration that penetrates us all, to be able to see the sameness of all this, the spirituality of all this within ourselves. So it becomes much more, physically aspected. It becomes much more intellectually aspected without the spiritual. But the spiritual is seeing all this interconnection at this level and so on. So this is very important. This is the suffering of samsara is not realizing, not understanding, not recognizing the spiritual aspect. So we have to identify these component parts. It may sound like these are things that we take for granted. It may seem like things that are very basic and so on, but we need to understand these things. The understood words are more important now. We can't take anything for granted anymore. So this next part of the prayer says, in the three lower realms, which I talked about, and even in the three higher ones, which I just talked about, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. Even the gods, if you were a god, there's still moments of fear, of concern, of misunderstanding. In the hell realms, there's certainly, you're immersed in that fear and that misery and so on like that. It says, I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. So what this means is we have a choice. And with that choice, we can redirect ourselves to turn away from the suffering that we've created for ourselves into practicing the excellent path of peace, to not causing harm to ourselves and to not causing harm to other beings, to include the earth, to include animate objects and inanimate objects. So this is what leads us to the enlightenment, the awakenedness. The enlightenment is like being awakened. We've been asleep, not realizing the spirituality. We've been locked in our physicality. We've been locked in our intellectualism, but we haven't recognized the spirituality. So when we turn the light on, the enlightenment, comes this realization, comes this awakening. It's like wakening from a deep sleep that we've been in for these past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however it is that we've been living, and so on. So then we contemplate this. This is the essential point. These are the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Why do we go to the Dharma? To be able to understand these things. So now I'd like to open this up and let anybody have any comments or questions about what we just talked about. Yes, Sarah.
Lance, this is not specifically related to exactly what you're talking about, but kind of, have you seen people who go back to their spiritual selves in their like much sooner than like most people get to we are like in their late 30s or 40s, where they've gone through and they like realize they never got happy with all these material items and never led to a fulfillment or a joy? Have you seen this happen much earlier in a Western culture? So not in the East, where it's more normal to get spiritual nutrition right from the beginning, but I'm just curious in your perspective, because most people can.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they may not necessarily know how to express it. And that becomes a frustration. I feel these things, I kind of recognize these things, but I don't have a way of expressing it. And then they discover some kind of religion, some kind of philosophy, and how does that philosophy, does that religion satisfy them? To what point? And that's why a lot of people go through these different traditions, Eastern traditions, Western traditions, etc., and then they kind of exhaust it. They get to a point where they say, well, it no longer satisfies me. And then they come to what we say is, the Buddhist practice, the Buddhist philosophy, and so many people say, oh yes, this is so articulate. This talks about in its articulation of the system that I can understand. And yes, now I can put it all together and understand what's happening in my heart center together with what's happening in my brain center. So yes, I've seen it many times. And young kids, 4 or 5 years old, who seem to be wiser than their years and more compassionate and so on. So absolutely, yes. And it's our job as parents, I think, as family and so on, to recognize this and to raise our children as enlightened ones, to teach them what it is to be enlightened. They are born with the skills, with the ability to recognize all this. But what we have done, I think what all of us have become subject to, was the repression of all of this and the suppression of all of this because of our family's ignorance and the school systems and the politics and the greed and the money and all these kinds of things have moved us away into this time of what we say degeneration. From the time we're born, we can either generate ourselves as being a holy person that we might call a Buddha or something else like that, or we're being suppressed into this degenerate life of not recognizing that, not using that. What do you think of that?
That's interesting. I was going to ask you that as a follow-up. So someone like myself who has nieces and nephews, or Aaliyah, and I'm sure Kunga has children. Kevin, I don't know if you do, but we're coming into the Dharma while we still have the ability to help the next generation get these habitual impressions in a conscious, intentional way. Do you have, because of your own wisdom, do you have practical advice for us, like in how we can help give this like spiritual nutrition to our family members, our nieces, nephews, or our children, like in a very consumable way, where it's not like, oh, this is Buddhism, or we're forcing this, in this, because like you said,
Well,
people have
I
to go
hope
through the
this is what we're
process.
doing. I hope this is what we're doing now. Is, I think what we're trying to do is to explain this in terms that we can relate to in our Western culture, in our Western life, and so on, and be able to move towards, this spirituality, which is a connectedness of all beings, for the benefit of all beings, for the benefit of the planet, for the benefit of this world, for our mutual benefit. So I think that's what we're trying to do. It's not like flipping a switch, unfortunately. There's a process. So we're learning the vocabulary of the process. That's the first thing. That's what we're trying to define here through our Buddhism 101, is giving a vocabulary for all these what seem to be disparate things that are very subtle, but yet are fundamental to what it is to being a human being, what it is to be a holy being, what it is to be a Buddha or a Christ or a God or an Allah, whatever you want to call that true nature that we all are sharing. So how you apply it in your situation, I don't know that I can give you direct answer for that. It's something that you have to pull together. But we're giving you a understanding of what this spirituality is. Then it's up to you to do the application. As a matter of fact, we talk about that there's 5 paths. The first path to this process is the path of accumulation. You're accumulating knowledge. You're accumulating wisdom. You're accumulating loving kindness and compassion. You're accumulating this. This is what we're doing now. Then comes the application. How do you apply that to your life and so on? And then through the interaction of that, you develop insight. Oh, this works. Oh, but this didn't work. Oh, I got to change the way I use this, the way I present this. I didn't get through to everybody. So I learn how to apply this stuff that I've accumulated. And then you have this insight, and then you have this awareness of the meditation, of the familiarity of all this. That this is what it is to be a human being. This is the meditation, to see what it is to be a pure human being. And then the 5th part of that, the 5 paths, is the dedication, the realization that we do this for the benefit of others. I cannot be free if you're not free. If you are suffering, I'm suffering. Why? Because we're all connected. I can help you be happy because I'm happy, but there's a point where you have to do it for yourself. All I can do is show it to you, or anybody else, or what you can do. I'm not saying me personally, but I'm just saying, in that the teacher-disciple kind of a relationship. So we're in the accumulation phase right now. And
Thank you, Lance.
we dabble in the application phase.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, right now you're giving us knowledge, conceptual knowledge that we will later experientially apply naturally and organically as it reveals itself through our heart mind.
And to become the embodiment of this. For each one of us to become the embodiment of this. You're hearing it, and maybe it registers as a vicarious experience from my mouth, or from these books, or from other teachers. It's vicarious. You say, oh, that sounds great, but I don't know what he's talking about. I haven't experienced that yet. But the point is to get you to the point where you do experience it. And that's where the contemplation, you see, is critical, because it's through the contemplation you're going through an intellectual process. And when you exhaust that intellectual process, then you have the transference, then you have the transcendence of that familiarity. You say, oh, now I know what it is. I've broken through. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I was just going to say, I guess similar to like Zara's point too, you definitely do run into people who feel like they're old souls, like even at a young age. I feel like my daughter is definitely somebody like that. And after having heard Jyotish read, I already know kind of that her life will be pretty smooth sailing, kind of, like smooth, even keeled, whereas mine, not so much. And I was going to ask, I guess, I feel like I've had maybe multiple rebirths in the same lifetime. I don't know. That's just how it feels right now.
That's right. That's right.
Is that okay? Okay. Because I'm like, even with like work or relationships or family, it's like, oh, I've seen that before. And then I'm having to go through instead of go around. And every time I don't go through, like even right now, to your analogy about work, I'm like, oh man, I spent all day just trying to do one thing, but it's just this mind thing. And I just kept saying to myself, I got to suffer through this, not in a bad way, because it's something new, it's something exciting. But I did ask 2 of my coworkers, and like you said, we're all connected. Funny enough, both my coworkers talk to me, but I'm new to the team, so they never really talk to each other that much. But the great thing is, I feel like I've maybe helped connect them, because it's just a small team of 3. And I feel good about that, because at least I can tell one person what the other person has said and vice versa to help us move forward as a team with this new project. So that's kind of been good. But if I hadn't had this experience, I think before in a different department with a similar vibe, I wouldn't have been able to have the wisdom and knowledge to understand what was happening, that I really had to push through this and do my best and learn in the process, and help others going forward, kind of to your point about like teaching and learning and paying that wisdom and knowledge forward. So yeah, it is very challenging, and I have told some of my coworkers when things are hard that they are impermanent, even though they really do feel like they're permanent. And it's like, what is it, like that saying of like, something is 2020, like the past, like you're realizing like, oh yeah, I really did have to go through that in order to really have the perspective and discernment to not maybe repeat the pattern. So that's kind of just how it feels, like that rebirth and that recycling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a spiral. We go through, this circular pattern of being a human being. We're just born, we're a young child, we're 8 years old, 9 years old, etc. We're going through all these confrontations that we have to, navigate through on our own, but we get the input from our parents and our friends how to do that and so on. And many times we're able to find the solutions to those problems, but sometimes we can't. But then we get a little bit older, and now we're going through another cycle, and we're bringing the old questions that weren't settled in our early years, we bring to now our teenage years. And then we maybe don't solve them there, and we go into our 20 years, and we bring those problems to our 20-year time. So how many 20-year-olds are very childish, who haven't solved a lot of their problems? and not just 20-year-old, but 40 or 50 or 60-year-old people who are very childish. But then you say, well, then there's some who are old souls and so on, and they seem to have some wisdom, at a very young age and so on. So that's true too. But, are we developing, are we allowing them to develop into their next stages and not suppress, that wisdom that they seem to have, and use their intelligence and to use their spirituality to help each other? So the point is that we go around these circles, we go around these cycles, and these cycles get tighter and tighter and tighter. So it's like a spiral till we get to the point, to the very tip of that spiral. And that spiral is where we have the ability, or we've developed to where we become that spiritual being. We become that pure being. And along the way, we have purified, we have rectified, we have cleared away all the obstacles, all the confusions on that spiral going up. So it's been a spiral of investigation, of purification, cleaning, refining, polishing, and so on like that, to be able to get to the point where we become a complete human being, where we realize our physicality, our intellectual, and our spiritual, and it's all working now, all in balance at the same time. Yes, sir.
Lance, I did have a practical question, just because I know there's new people. How important is it, would you say, to have a spirit, like for you, you're my spiritual teacher, and like getting on this path, having someone, we call it Sangha, but having like a lead point of contact who has that wisdom? How important do you think that is in the first several months as you start to lean in towards this system?
Well, it's very important, and we talked about that, when we began this, because the second session that we had was about the spiritual friend, the spiritual teacher, the spiritual guide. So we talked about that. It's very, very important, whether it's a book or whether it's a human being who's helping you to relate that. But it's very important, and the more connection that you have with that, the stronger your process becomes, the more fruitful your process becomes, because it's very easy for us to fall off the tracks. It's very easy for us to wander and to get lost and so on. But, if you've got a good friend, if you've got a good spiritual guide and so on, they will recognize that, and they will say, hey, look, you've lost your way. You need to get your wheels on the track again. So it's very important. And personally, I look at this as a college level. We're all, mature people here and so on. And, there's work that you all have to do. Just hearing me or somebody like me speak for a couple of hours once a week, is going to take you about that far. But if you put the time in to be able to see this as a process, as a graduated path, and use the tools that we're presenting to you, it's going to, increase your ability to be able to become the embodiment of this wisdom and the actuator of this compassion and so on. It's a necessary process to be able to do that. So I look at it as a college level. Here it is. You've got to take it in. You've got to put the time in. And, I've said this before, for every hour that I'm speaking, there's been at least 2, 3, or 4 or 5 hours that I've had to process to be able to put it into, some kind of way that maybe I can help you understand this. So there's an investment here. There's a commitment to this. And there's no way to turn away from that and expect and hope that you're going to get a good result. You'll get a result, but it's going to be a thin veneer that is easily broken, because there will be challenges and so on. So at a college level, I can say that. At a junior high level, or an elementary school level, or even a high school level, you gotta you got to speak to the crowd, and they have a very short attention span, and they're not going to do their homework, and they're not going to read these things by themselves. But I hope at this level you do. Anybody else got a comment? All right, well, I'm going to move to the next topic, which is the karma, cause, and result. Now, we're going to go a little bit later than 8:30 today. So I hope anybody, does anybody have something that they can't stay with us? But I'd like to be able to get this out. We're doing the circle. We're doing the spiral. We're going to come back to all these things many times over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. This is not a 6-month course. It may start out as that. It may appear to be that. But to really get on board and create your tracks and everything, it takes lifetimes. It's taken you lifetimes to get to where you are. So karma, cause, and result. Karma is a Sanskrit word, and you might want to write this down. It means action. For there to be an action, we have to have a cause. The cause for an action, the cause for karma. We have to recognize that this doesn't happen all by itself. It happens because you've had some kind of a cause that has made you want to act in a certain way or not act in a certain way, because non-activity can create karma also, can create an activity also. So there's a cause that we do something, we do it, and then there's a result. So in the simplest way, we can say that there's a good cause and a bad cause for all these different things that we're confronted with and so on. So it's kind of like, the golden rule. If I do good things are going to happen as a result. Despite the fact that bad things might be what's making me want to do good things, because I recognize it as a bad thing. If I say, okay, I can use this knowledge that I have and do a good deed, and I'm going to have a good outcome. Conversely, there can be a good thing that I know is good, but because I'm deluded, because I'm afflicted, because I have bad intention for any given reason, I'm going to do a bad thing with that. Like I'm going to help people make money, but I'm going to find a way to steal it from them. I'm helping them to make money. That sounds like a good thing, but then I'm going to rob them in the end. So now there's a bad result. The results to me. You can't transfer karma. It's your karma. You do the deed. You have the cause. It's your deed. And there's a result that you have to assume responsibility for. You have to take responsibility for. That was one of the things that in my personal, career through learning spirituality was taking responsibility for my actions, for what I do, my happiness or my suffering. I have to take responsibility for that. I can't give it to somebody else. I tried. I always try to blame somebody else. Don't we do that? Oh, my parents didn't teach me. Oh, my kid is such a, he doesn't understand, he won't put the time in. I've done everything I can for them, but he won't do it. And now I'm not growing because, he's stunting me. He's causing me to stay here and have this kind of a job and do this kind of a stuff. I can't grow because I have to pay attention to my kid all the time. So you're blaming it on somebody else. But to take responsibility for yourself. I know lots of people, and you do too, I'm sure, who are 40, 50 years old, who are still blaming their parents for their shortcomings. Oh, if my parents had done this for me, my parents had done that for me, what a different life I would have had, and so on. So we know lots of people like that. So this karma, cause and result, is something that is our working, our modus operandi, the way in which we do things. So it says, even if I were a king, at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retinue will not follow. So what that's saying is all the physical stuff, all this phenomenal stuff, the money in the bank, the cars, the house, the relationships, all this kind of stuff, when it comes time for me to die, when I have to lay my body down, I can't take any of that with me. As we say, there ain't no luggage racks on a hearse. The only thing you can take with you is your energy. You have to release that energy. All the physical stuff is gone. So even if one were a king, even a king, at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retinue will not follow. But wherever that sentient being goes, his karma, his actions, the results of his actions, follows after him like a shadow. So there are things that we have done maybe 25 years ago, maybe yesterday, maybe earlier today, maybe last week, whatever. There are things that we have done that energy is coming to us. It may come to us in a form of merit, good vibration. I did a good thing and I got this good vibration. I got this confidence that I can make these effective changes in my life. I take responsibility for it. It's good and everything. But then there are these negative things that we've done that are still nagging at us and have to be reconciled. They need to be reconciled. They need to be neutralized. We still have things that happened many, many years ago that you might feel guilty about. Oh, I wish I had done it a better way. I made a mistake. I know I made a mistake. How can I make it up? Well, that person is gone. I'll never see that situation again, whatever it is. But I do it in a new situation. I say, here's a similar situation to that which I screwed up 25 years ago, and I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I'm going to correct it now. And that's a valid way of neutralizing karma or activating karma for good purpose, for good reason, and so on like that. So wherever this sentient being goes, his karma follows after him like a shadow. So you're thinking about this in this life. Alea was just saying, wow, it's like she's been born again. I'm going to put that word in your mouth, that she's been born again 2 or 3 or 4 times in this life already. That gone through changes, that, you left the old person behind and now you're a new person, with you've improved your values, your behaviors, and so on like that. So in that way, the old person is gone. That old person is dead. The past is gone. But there's a new person here. It's a new Lance. It's a new Alea. Whoever, it's a new person and so on. So that karma follows after us like a shadow. So it's up to us to recognize not just the karma, but what the causes of the karma were and what the results of the karma. And to be able to learn how to be able to control our reactions to those causes and conditions. There are causes and conditions. The causes may be those thoughts that are coming up in your brain, in your mind. the little mind, causing you to want to do this, that, or the other thing. But it's not until the conditions are right that you can act on it. The conditions might be the external things, that now you've got this job, that now I can do these things, where before it was just maybe an aspiration. It was a cause of an aspiration. Now I can realize the aspiration because I'm in this job. I've got these things that I can do it with. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a business that I want to invest in. All these different aspects of what it is, for conditions to be ripe. We say conditions ripen. We say karma ripens. Old things that may have happened 25 years ago. But maybe there's old things that may have happened in a previous life. Now that gets a little mystical. That gets a little mythologic, I lived in 1825 and I stole a horse or something like that, and I've never had to deal with that before, but now I do. So maybe it's something like that, So we take responsibility for all of that is the point. So we move to the next prayer here. It says, the fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. So we've been talking about that. The suffering is the fruit of negative karma. So if we've got a good life and we're happy and we've got good friends and we have good education, we have good jobs and everything, there's a lot to be happy about. And that's our good karma. But at the same time, if we had, negative things, there's certain things that just don't work. In my relationships, I just don't have the kind of relationships that I would like to have. But I got money, I got this house, I got this, but my relationships don't work. Or maybe you got the relationships, but you're not good with money. These things, it's very dynamic in the way this operates and so on. So we see that, that one's positive karma brings happiness and negative karma brings suffering. So this is these are broad statements. But the inexorable means that you can't argue it, that it's beyond. It becomes like a natural law. We say that karma is a natural law. Another natural law, another example would be gravity. You can't see gravity, but you know it's there. You can't see the force of electromagnetics, but you know it's there. If you go stick your finger in the electric socket, you're going to get a shock, but you don't see the electricity. You see the bare wire, you may see that, but you don't see the electricity moving in one place or another unless you recognize something like lightning. There you can see it. But that electromagnetics is all around us. What about your cell phone? We're being bombarded with all these electromagnetics all the time. We're in a field of all this stuff, radio frequency and all this light frequency, all these kinds of things that we're being bombarded with and so on. But it's a law, isn't it? And there's science to it that can predict, if you do this, that, and the other thing, you're going to have this, that, and kind of a result and so on. And then there's the weak force and the strong force. These are atomic forces. The atomic forces that hold the atoms together, that hold the nucleus, the protons and the neutrons are in the nucleus, and then around that are the electrons spinning. But then in between the electrons and the nucleus are all these other things that they've discovered, the muons and the bosons and all these subatomic particles that can only be seen with very sophisticated equipment and so on like that. And what holds that together? What holds that together is called the strong force. It's invisible to us, but yet it's what keeps everything together. If you can break that bond, if you can break that force that's holding those atoms together, you've got what is a bomb or a nuclear reactor in a positive way, or a bomb in a negative way. That's what it is. It's breaking an atom apart with many other atoms being affected, and you have all this energy that's released. So in its natural state, that atom remains, compact, and the strong force is holding it together. But at the same time, what we don't recognize again, but the scientists have done all this work to discover and everything, that there's a weak force that is pulling it apart. There's very weak pulling it apart. So they talk about the universe. We look outside at the stars, we see the universe, and wow, it's not miraculous, but, that it's ever expanding. So this is the weak force, but we don't readily see that. So karma is a spiritual law. Those things that I just mentioned were 4 physical laws. There's intellectual laws. If you do certain things, mathematics and so on, you can solve all these problems. You can learn how to devise laws and government and so on like that, and you have to abide by the laws. Those are natural laws. Those are, physical things, surgeons going in, everybody, once you remove the skin, everybody looks the same. You got the heart's going to be in the same place, the lungs are going to be in the same place, the brain's going to be in the same place. All this follows laws and so on. So these are physical, intellectual laws. There's mind, they're learning more about the psyche and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's spiritual law too. And the spiritual law has to do with this law of reciprocity. For lack of a better word, is reciprocity. If you do good things are going to happen. If you do bad things are going to happen. So the inexorable karmic causation, the undeniable karmic causation, what causes the karma is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. That's the sentence in this prayer. So the dharmas is a lowercase d. So I've said before that the lowercase d is a pathway. There's many, many, many dharmas. It's a Sanskrit word, and it simply means a pathway. The Buddha Dharma, which is a capital D, indicates this is the Buddha's way of being able to create a system for us to understand what it is to be a human being, the Buddha Dharma. So, but it says the inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. And all these things that are happening, our jobs, our relationships, all the things that we involve in are all these dharmas. So we can't deny that. It says, henceforth, practice the Dharma with a capital D by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. So what that means is that we need to abide by the spiritual Dharma, the spiritual laws, and give up some of these other laws that we've been chasing after like a ring in our nose that has been leading us to greed, that has been leading us to jealousy, that has been leading us to arrogance, that has been leading us to pride, to hatefulness, to aggression, to conflict, and so on like that. We need to give some of those things up. We've been doing these things because they're convenient. We've had wrong view that these are the important things. But to be in balance, to be a complete human being, means that our spirituality is the balancing element between the physical and the intellectual. So this karma, cause, and result is the system, is the natural law that guides this, that we need to abide by. We need to be able to control ourselves so that we're not falling into the trap of creating bad karma for ourselves, thinking that we're doing good things, that we rationalize and so on like that. So this statement here at the bottom of the page says, many people will come to the Buddha, many people will come to teachers and say, well, if you know so much, what was my past life? And the Buddha would say, a good teacher would say, it doesn't matter what you did in a past life. I don't know what you did in a past life. You don't know what you did in a past life. But the question you need to ask is, how did I get here? Why? Because I'm here with this life. That's a result of stuff that I did. And now the question you should be asking is, what do I want to do in a future life? Because what you do now is going to precipitate as the building blocks for what your next life will be. Whether it's tomorrow, or it's next week, or it's next year, or it's next lifetime, or 5 lifetimes from now. What you do now, you're laying the foundations, you're building the floors of a theoretical building, for your next life, or your next incarnation, whatever it is, however you define that to be. So that's the important thing. What am I doing now? Am I proud of what I'm doing now? Proud in the way that I know it's a noble thing. I'm doing a good thing. I'm not causing negative karma. If anything, I'm doing good karma. I'm gaining merit so that I can help other beings, because I'm helping other beings, so that they can help themselves. So, thank you for staying with me on this. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Kevin had asked earlier, like he was asking about reincarnation. Kevin, this is really kind of what Lance is like connecting the action sequences and what happens. You asked about like how a Buddhist would view death. Like this is really fundamental what Lance is describing. I don't know if that's helpful.
Sort of. I haven't fully grasped it, but as we continue, I'll try to grab it a little bit more. But thank you. I'm listening and I'm absorbing.
Very good.
Thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. I truly appreciate it. Drawing that connection.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see the practical application of understanding the Buddha Dharma teachings. The Buddha was a genius. He was a human being, was a genius, and was able to articulate his experience. And it has been resonating in so many cultures with so many human beings for 2,600 years. And as being considered as a preeminent system, a philosophy of understanding the self, what it is to be a human being. So that's real genius to be able to do that. Yes, Kongo.
So there's I don't know how many people are familiar with the Dhammapada, but it's a collection of verses, talks about early Buddhist teachings. And the very first verse of the Dhammapada says, "My life is shaped by my mind. I become what I think. Sorrow follows an evil thought, like the wheels of a cart follow the oxen that draw it. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Joy follows a pure thought, like a shadow that never leaves." So this idea that, your thoughts are the kind of basis for your actions. And so by focusing on those positive thoughts, that'll lead to positive actions or events or reactions in your life, and negative thoughts will have that same result in a negative way. So, thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Yeah.
It's really funny you bring that up because I'm in a position right now where, as we do meditation, they also teach you where your thoughts are not consistent. It's not forever, and it comes in like a cloud and it fades away. So if we are what our thoughts are, how can we be if our thought is only temporary and it changes based on how we changes our environment? So I'm at an interesting point with that perspective. So just FYI on the thoughts itself.
Well, there are brain thoughts, and that's what I think you're talking about. But at the same time, our heart thoughts. And we need to learn to recognize heart thoughts and be able to produce heart thoughts.
How do you differentiate?
Well, we'll talk more about that.
So yeah, Kunga, happy you brought that up. Yeah, it's just that's one other aspect about thoughts. Yes, your thoughts materialize, and your self-talk, your positive talk, different. Well, that's talk and thoughts, very similar, but yeah, interesting concepts.
And I would just add to that, when we have particular thoughts in our brain, it's because we have a neural pathway that is created, right? So the more habitually you think of certain things, the stronger those pathways become, and to the point where other pathways don't become, kind of die out as you get older, and the pathways that you practice all the times are the ones you're stuck with. So if you practice certain types of thoughts, like you focus your life on your spiritual practice, that'll be all the pathways that are created in your mind. Versus if you're someone who maybe spends all your time on negative pursuits, those will be the pathways that are developed in your brain, and all the other pathways will tend to deteriorate.
Thank you. So does anybody else have a comment? Question? Okay, well then, we'll be talking about these things. This 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma is part of a daily practice. We do the opening prayers that Kevin recited for us early when we started tonight, and we recite those, and then we would recite these 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And it's reinforcing our motivation to be able to understand, to be able to abide within this system of understanding, of realization, of becoming open, of becoming aware, awakened, and so on. So it's a process, but these are tools to help us to remember how to do this. We just don't read it one time and think we're going to remember it next week or something like that. We need to be the embodiment of these things. And slowly, we begin to really memorize these things because our lifestyle changes, the way in which we operate changes, and our motivation becomes the spiritual motivation, and our secondary motivation becomes the practical things that we think are so important and so on. They still have an application. They still have need. We still have to have jobs and relationships. But maybe we change the priority of their importance, especially the older we get, the more that we feel that we need to do this. So thank you very much. So Kevin, you are the umze tonight. The umze is the person who is doing the recitation for the benefit, leads the group, the sangha, in the recitations. So for tonight, you are the umze, it's called, the chant master, if you will. So if you will turn to page 36 in your prayer books, to the dedication prayer by Lord Jigten Sumgon. And there are names, there's words in here that I know you're not going to be familiar with, but we will be talking about them as we move forward. But this prayer is quite comprehensive and as concise as it can be in being able to bring this whole process together. So, Kevin, would you recite this for everybody's benefit, please?
Thank you for the honor. This is the dedication prayer, correct?
Yes, dedication prayer by Lord Jigten Sumgon.
Okay. Glorious, holy, vulnerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yiddamas and assemblies of Buddhas, Buddhistavas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions. Please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate root of virtue. No result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pradya Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, mislead in matters, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream by moistened by love and kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahurara in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in a great luminosity of the mind as such as the pervading clarity of Dhammata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. May my body, speech, and mind become...
Please, excuse me.
Oh.
Yeah, turn your camera on for a moment. Om.
Oh, okay.
Om.
Shoot,
Ah. Om. Om. Ah. Om. Om. Ah. Om. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of sentient beings. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. Alea, thank you. Kunga, Zara, thank you very much. And everybody on Zoom, thank you very much. Everybody on YouTube. So I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Kevin, come back next week. No peer pressure.
Oh, no problem. As long as you'll have me.
Please come back. I loved having you on tonight. It was great.
Well, thank you. I love being part of this. Timing has been off, but we hope everyone would be healthy like Alea next week, and she could be the MC, Master of Ceremonies.
Aw.